ready for the Clemson and Virginia Tech ACC Championship football game coming up Saturday nights down in Orlando. Phil Kornblut here, the Professor Tom Hayes, back in our studios in downtown Columbia, along with Jar March, Jared Rogers-Martin, Carson Nova. Carson Mason is there as well. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com and on Twitter @SportsTalkSC. We'll take plenty of your phone calls. We've got Dabo Sweeney coming up for you tonight. A little bit of Brad Brownell previewing tonight's showdown with Nebraska, the Tigers and Nebraska in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. It's the Tigers at 3-2 and Nebraska at 4-2. Pro, I'm excited to be here because, well, it's basketball, number one. Number two, my first chance to watch a game inside the newly renovated Little John Coliseum. So I've been in there when it was empty and kind of looked around, but I'm looking forward to being in there with some people now.
It'll be a good game, Cohen. Everybody's talking about a Clemson and Jaron Blossom game. This guy, in my mind, he elevates his shot 15, 18 feet, which he has. In my mind, he's a pro. I think he's going to be a great pro in the NBA. The key point this year, I think, probably if they can get consistent guard play and let Dante Grantham, it's kind of important that he plays more to the level he did, a little bit more free-flowing as a freshman than he did with the sophomore Jenks play he had last year. So you get those two forwards going in some steady guard play, the Jete continuing to improve as a defensive player, rebounder, shot blocker. Clemson could be in the hunt in the ACC for an NCAA berth if the old things gel together as we move to the ACC season.
Yeah. Well, they were in it last year. They had won that the streak of games over ACC teams impressively, but then they kind of came apart down the stretch, and then a quick ouster from the ACC tournament, and that was it for them. So if the Tigers can hold it together all the way through this season, they're going to have to run the gamut of that tough ACC slate when they get to it. And, they've got a stretch of games coming up. North Carolina. Then they'll go to Notre Dame. They've got Virginia. They have to go to Louisville. Got to play and improve Virginia Tech. Have to go to Pittsburgh. So, they hit that stretch where there's just no breathing. You don't get a break when you hit this part of the ACC schedule.
Yeah, and I think that another key this year, probably, and Cohen, please keep an eye on him. Tell me how he played. But I'm interested in seeing how the transfer plays out of Dallas, Texas. Thomas, 6'9", about 235, 240. Looks like the enforcer guy with athletic ability. This may be the wild card for Clemson. This kid that they got. I forgot where he transferred from. But I think Texas A&M, did he not? Or something.
Correct.
Like
Texas A&M. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he could be a big boost for them inside. The thing about this Clemson team is that all their starters right now averaging in double figures. And Jete's averaging a double-double, 10.6 points and 10.2 rebounds per game early on in the season. So they're getting great balance in their lineup. Not a particularly, you think of Nebraska – teams past, they don't have a great basketball tradition, but you think about a lot of bulk and a lot of size, and I guess 6'9", 6'8", 6'7", they go along their front line. Clemson will go 6'10", 6'8", 6'7", though Grantham's not really an inside player. He's really he's a four with three skills. So we'll see how the Tigers match up inside with Tim Miles Ball Club there at Nebraska. 9 o'clock tip-off, by the way.
Wow.
9 o'clock tip-off up here at Little John. All right, 800-956-7266. The big story of the day is the ACC naming its player of the year, the media, the Atlantic Coast Media Association. That's the group that does the voting for the awards. Atlantic Coast Sports Media Association. But anyway, they named the player of the year in overwhelming fashion Lamar Jackson of Louisville, 36 votes. Deshaun Watson got 5, Dalvin Cook 3, and Ben Boulware got a vote for ACC Player of the Year. That's interesting because he wasn't even to being the Defensive Player of the Year. That was DeMarcus Walker of Florida State. He didn't get a vote for Player of the Year. And, of course, Jackson was named the Offensive Player of the Year. So, you know, we're partial to Deshaun Watson, no question about that. Lamar Jackson had a fabulous season in terms of his individual numbers, eye-popping numbers at times, some of that against some inferior opposition. Then again, Watson has done the same thing against inferior opposition at times too. But I don't know how you resolve in your mind how you vote for somebody when it comes to a Player of the Year. Is it simply based on the statistics a guy runs up, or is it based on his statistics and how his team does? It's a team sport. Football is the ultimate team sport. None of these quarterbacks or running backs could excel if they didn't have big linemen out in front of them and receivers catching the ball to make the passing yards go up and things of that nature. You know, in my eyes, though, it's just like with the Heisman. I'm voting Deshaun Watson to win the Heisman again, as I did last year. And I'm going to go out against Virginia Tech and have a spectacular game. I think now, you know, as he sees the end of the road for his college year, he's ramping it up. You can just see the entire offense ramping it up. And maybe it is a situation where the coach is sort of held back on those reins a little bit during the season to get by some people, not overextend their offensive people, and keep them fresh. And, you know, you go back to the South Carolina game last weekend, and you saw a very fresh Wayne Gallman running the football with reckless abandon and just sticking it up in there and getting a lot of yards after first contact, breaking tackles. And maybe that's because they didn't put the heavy workload on him throughout the season. And now, you know, he's healthy, his legs feel good, and this is the time of year when you want to shine.
Well, they need a running game. They know down the stretch. To win a football game, you have to run the football. Just look at the fact that they put the ball up 70 times, and that was the only loss they have. Don't ask me to explain it, but the football gods do not like you throwing on every down, and it haunted Clemson in that one. As far as Deshaun Watson is concerned, maybe with Jackson winning the ACC trophy, he gets the big trophy, the Heisman. As I said before, if they invite me to New York for the second time, I'm coming trophy, not for second place. But I will say this. Heisman Trophy quarterbacks have had checkered careers in the NFL. Maybe Deshaun Watson, if he doesn't win it, maybe it's a good thing. Peyton Manning didn't win it, and look at his NFL career. However, you can just go down a litany of Heisman Trophy winners who've gone to the NFL and just petered out before the careers even got started.
Well, you know, and I think some of that is that some college quarterbacks, they have great years in their college system, but they're not cut out to be pro quarterbacks. And they don't have what it takes to be an outstanding professional quarterback. But in their system in college, they indeed were outstanding, at least for that year. We'll be right back. Be right back here on Sports Talk. back in Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network here on what is this? Wednesday night.
Hump day.
Yeah, it is a Wednesday. Phil Kornblut and the Professor Tom Hayes. K-Mac is off tonight. 800-956-7266. So what do you think of the voting by the Atlantic Coast? Here's the thing, and we'll get to phone calls in just a moment. Watson set the bar too high. Simply put, he set the bar too high for himself from last year. And, because he hasn't matched those numbers and he's thrown a few more interceptions than last year, everybody's holding it against him. And the Tigers lost a game in the regular. They're holding it against him. And now you get this newcomer who came out of really nowhere. I mean, we'd heard of Lamar Jackson last year, but he didn't play all that much last year. He wasn't the starting quarterback, the primary quarterback at Louisville last year. And he burst on the scene. And, of course, Louisville gets off to the great start, and they get out there and they put some humongous numbers on the board. They put 70 on the board against Charlotte, 62 against Syracuse, 63 against Florida State, and 59 against Marshall. Everybody's like, whoa. And he's scoring all these touchdowns and stuff like that. And then, of course, they lose to Clemson, 42-36, scored 24 against Duke, 54 against NC State, 32 against Virginia, 52 at Boston College, 44 against Wake Forest. Then they lose to Houston, they lose to Kentucky. So, again, you got to think about, I think, when you're selecting a player of the year is how did the team do as well? And where is the team? Strictly individual performance over individual performance plus team success. I guess in the minds of many, Jackson's numbers were just so overwhelmingly big this year, and they were overwhelmingly big that it's hard to ignore. However, when it comes to the Heisman, when is that? That's next. Is that next week? I know we got to vote soon. When it comes to the Heisman, got to vote Deshaun Watson here because, and I know it's not a career award, but you're right, Pro. If he's not winning it, don't bring him back up to New York. That's the ultimate insult.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, listen, Lamar Jackson, what did he have? Over 1,700 rushing yards. He had over 3,200 passing yards. Yeah, he had amazing numbers, no question about it. But his team lost 3 times. And Clemson, barring catastrophe, Saturday is going to have 12 wins, and they're going to play for the national championship semifinals again. And largely due to Deshaun Watson, who's his numbers aren't chopped liver. I mean, you look at his numbers, and the rushing numbers don't compare with Jackson simply because he wasn't asked to run as much, nor did he choose to run as much this year. The attempts are certainly down compared to last year, but you look at his other offensive numbers on the season, he's completing 68% of his passes, 3,626 yards, 34 touchdowns, 302 yards per game. He has rushed for 4 touchdowns, 441 yards. So, I don't know. I know we are biased because we see him and he's in our yard, but I don't know how you can't vote for Deshaun Watson in terms of his performance and his team, what he means to his team, and where his team is.
Well, that's what people will tell you. Louisville wouldn't even win the games without Jackson. See, my point is this: say if Deshaun Watson played at Louisville and Louisville came from where they were in 8-3. And Jackson played for Clemson, and they were undefeated. Deshaun Watson would get the award because they're looking at the team that was way down, and he brought them up. That seems to be how people vote nowadays. Coach of the year is not always the guy who wins them all. It's the guy who, wait a minute, they only won 4 last year, and they won how many this year? 8, 9? Yeah, he gets coach of the year. That seems to be what a lot of voters are thinking nowadays. But when you get to the Heisman, here's the deal. 8 o'clock start, prime time. You're down in Florida. ACC trying to get a second ACC title. Show off Deshaun Watson and then everybody will see your splendor, and he's going to move the needle. He may move a few votes.
Watson last year, just looking at his passing numbers. Now, this is through 15 games. He's played 12 games this year, so he's got 3 more. He will, if he plays 3 more games, if he gets to the national championship game and plays in it, he's going to surpass his passing yards from last year, his touchdown total from last year. His completion percentage is almost to the point identical. 67.8% last year. He threw for 4,104 yards last year, and this year he's at 36.26. 34 touchdowns this year, 35 last year, 14 interceptions this year, and last year he threw 13 interceptions. So if he doesn't throw another pick, he'll only have thrown 1 more interception than he threw all of last year. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I do think that maybe Watson will be helped because out west you don't really have a super strong candidate this year. McCaffrey and look, McCaffrey had another great year, but why are people not talking about McCaffrey? Because Stanford didn't have a great year. You got Browning out there at Washington, but I don't know how many people really know about him and what he's done. I think Watson might pick up a lot of those votes out west, since there does not appear to be that strong contender out west. The question is how much of the South will be split between Watson and Jackson when it comes down to the voting.
That will be tough. And of course, because the ACC is up and down the Eastern Seaboard, how many Eastern votes he gets. Because, the East always seems to look at maybe a combination of Big Ten, who Notre Dame has on their roster, and that's not there this year, in my opinion, other than Jabril Peppers. But they didn't win against Ohio State, and Jabril has not played offense that much in the last few games, so that kind of takes him out of it. That's why I'm saying, it's just like the bodybuilding competition when Schwarzenegger used to sneak out and do the last pose and get the votes. Well, Deshaun has his last pose, and it's the ACC championship game. And if he shows out, he's going to move the needle. And a big game just may win it for him.
All right, 800-956-7266 is our number. We'll have Corey Miller coming up with us at the bottom of the hour. No Will Merritt tonight. He's out of town on business, tied up in some meeting. He can't join us tonight, but I'm expecting we'll have Corey. Comments from Dabo Sweeney. Brad Brownell looking ahead to tonight's basketball game as well. Plenty of great stuff for you. Let's see. Do we want to go to the phones here before we hit the bottom of the hour break? I think all right, let's go to Short Run, who is listening to us here. Short Run, welcome into Sports Talk. How are you?
Hello, I'm fine. I'm just doing good. Raining up here in Charlotte, bad weather. Y'all be careful if you're traveling this way.
Yeah, I came through it on my way to the upstate. There was a tornado warning, even a watch in Anderson County as I was hitting me about 5 o'clock, and I drove through a hellacious rainstorm for about 10 minutes. It was just blinding.
You made it back to Columbia safe today.
Well, no, I'm up in Clemson.
We're going to stay on the ballot this week and the Saturday night comes so everybody can hush their mouth about it. I still didn't see Alabama on the schedule, though.
Okay, well, I mean, they'll play Alabama if they get to the national championship game. The way things are set right now, it's Clemson's going to be the 2 or 3 seed, and Alabama's going to be the 1, which means they wouldn't meet until they get to the national championship game down in Tampa. So you might get your shot at Alabama and see if the Tigers can maybe turn the tables this time around. We're back in a moment. Welcome back, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, here on a Wednesday night from up at Clemson for basketball. The Tigers and Nebraska, ACC Big Ten Basketball Challenge, and looking forward to tonight's game. I have not really, be honest with you, been so caught up with the football stuff and the aftermath of that. I watched a little bit of Duke's win last night. How it stands between the two leagues?
If I'm not mistaken, after last night, it's Big Ten.
5-3 Big Ten. Who are the three ACC winners besides the two besides Duke? Who won? Do you know?
Well, Pittsburgh won last night. Remember, they blasted Maryland.
Yeah,
at Maryland. I'm trying to think who the other team was. I can't remember the other ACC team, but it's 3 wins.
No, I'll look it up. I'll look it up at some point. All right, 800-956-7266. Lines are open for you if you want to join us tonight. And I don't know, what do you think about, I'm asking the audience, Deshaun Watson, his chances for the Heisman, your feeling about him not getting ACC Player of the Year? I mean, do you give it to Lamar Jackson because of the numbers that he had were just so impressive that he has to get it? And Pro makes a good point too. You often vote for a guy that comes out of nowhere, a team that better. Of course, Louisville was good last year too, but they kind of faltered down the stretch this year, losing 2 of their last 3. While Clemson has just continued to win, you get, I guess maybe in voting for these things, you get bored with the same people. It's like with Alabama. I mean, Nick Saban, you could probably vote Coach of the Year almost every year in the SEC because his team is always right there. But he doesn't always win it. Somebody else will win it. But in terms of the Heisman, after coming up short last year, I don't see how the voters can't give it to Deshaun Watson. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Hey, whether you're a part of Clemson Orange or Gamecock Nation, everyone can agree on Founders Credit Union with a convenient location here in Clemson on Highway 93 that's now open. Also at USC at the Russell House. Founders is a sure fan favorite. Visit, relax, join Founders.com to see you qualify for membership. Founders Federal Credit Union, federally insured by NCUA. All right, back to the phones we go. Let's go down to Charleston. Tom, come into Sports Talk tonight. How are you?
Good. How you guys doing?
Terrific.
Hey, I think I'd give it to Watson because he's done a heck of a lot more than Jackson. And if you think about it, Jackson was basically Louisville's only running back. And as far as like Heisman, what would you think of a freshman being up in the Heisman?
You thinking of Jalen Hurts? You thinking of Jalen Hurts?
Sir. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that kid's done an awesome job, especially in the SEC and an undefeated season.
Mm-hmm. But some people would say he has the Great Wall in China in front of him with that Alabama offensive line. Sometimes he can have a cup of coffee and a sandwich back there sometimes.
Yeah, but he does a lot of it on his own. I mean, he is a tremendous talent, no question about it. Here's a guy that I don't know how many people knew about him come season and thought that this guy was going to be as stupendous as he has been. Best player on best team in the country. That's kind of how my thinking has gone with the Heisman, especially as it pertained last year to Deshaun Watson while Clemson was undefeated. Hurts is I'm trying to pull up his numbers here. He has obviously put up some huge numbers, and but he has great help around him. They have a great team. Should a guy be penalized for that? Let's see. Hurts, 66% completion, 2,454 yards, 21 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. And rushing the football, he has 840 yards and 12 touchdowns, averaging 5.5. Yeah, he's got tremendous numbers too. And they would not have won that LSU game
without him. I mean, he improvised to score the only touchdown in that football game in which they won 10-0 in a defensive slugfest there at Alabama. I mean, down in Baton Rouge.
Mm-hmm.
So he's and let's face it, again, he's one of those coaches' sons who, for some reason, and out of Texas high school football, that just knows how to win.
Back to the phones we go. Thank you for your phone call, 800-956-7266. Okay, our lines have cleared
Phil,
off.
I found the other ACC team that won a game.
All right, what you got?
And that's why my memory is slow, because I still don't think of them as ACC. Notre Dame against Iowa.
Okay.
It's hard, it's still hard for me to equate Notre Dame with ACC. But yes, they are an ACC basketball team, but independent in football.
Yeah, you're right. You have to remember that. And all right, so those are the wins for the ACC so far. We'll see if Clemson can add to that tonight. A couple of quick notes of importance to pass along from today. Besides the ACC Player of the Year, Deshaun Watson has been named a finalist for the Manning Award and the Warder Camp Player of the Year Award. He is joined in the finalists for the Manning Award with J.T. Barrett, senior, Ohio State, Jake Browning, sophomore from Washington, Sam Darnold, freshman from Southern Cal, Luke Falk, the senior quarterback out of Washington State, Jalen Hurts from Alabama, Lamar Jackson from Louisville, Patrick Mahomes II, the junior out of Texas Tech, Baker Mayfield, the senior from Oklahoma, Zach Terrell, the senior from Western Michigan. Those are the others in the competition there. And again, the Walter Camp Player of the Year recipient, that'll be announced on Thursday, December 8th. And, of course, again, Watson is a finalist for that. And he's also a finalist for the Davey O'Brien Award. Clemson assistant coach, defensive tackles coach Dan Brooks has been named National Assistant Coach of the Year by the Football Bowl subdivision of the American Football Coaches Association. He is in his 8th year at Clemson. He's the first Clemson coach to win the award. And Newberry back, Raleigh Yeldell, first ever from Newberry to be a finalist for the Harlan Hill Trophy, which is given to the top player in Division II. So he now advances to the national ballot. 9 finalists were named for that award. Yeldell, already the South Atlantic Conference Offensive Player of the Year. And this season, he had 5,462 yards of total offense, 3,536 passing yards, 61 total touchdowns. Wow. Had himself a year. And unfortunately, he got hurt late and wasn't available for the playoff game for the Wolves. So obviously that was a big miss for them down the stretch, and one of the reasons why they went one and done in the postseason. But congratulations to him for having a chance to win that award. Now, college basketball tonight. Let's take a look at the schedule. Besides the Clemson Tigers playing up here tonight against Nebraska, elsewhere around the state tonight, let's see. We've got Coastal Carolina, losers last night at Chattanooga. Tonight they're playing Methodist. Furman playing over at Winthrop tonight. In fact, that game is underway if you want to keep an eye on it. Pass along an update. Let's see. Also tonight, what else do we have around the state as we look at the basketball schedule? Voorhees and South Carolina State going at it tonight over in Orangeburg Pro. You know something about that rivalry.
Well, it's really not a rivalry. I mean, it used to be, but not anymore since, South Carolina State went Division I. And, of course, Voorhees is still NAIA.
Yeah. And I believe that does it for the college basketball tonight in all right, break is coming up. Give us a call, 800-956-7266. Sports Talk on a Wednesday night. We'll be right back. (800-956-7266) our number here on Sports Talk. Recruiting coming up for you in just a little bit. Also comments from Dabo Swinney. Also Brad Brownell leading up to tonight's game against Nebraska. A week from Saturday, the All-Star season in South Carolina gets underway. It does collide with high school football games because, well, we'll have the semifinals on that Friday night of next week, and then the North-South game on Saturday, championship the next Friday and Saturday, and then the Shrine Bowl that following Saturday the 17th. But we're all about the North-South game coming up in Myrtle Beach, brought to you by South Carolina Electric Cooperative, the Touchstone Energy Bowl. And we invite everyone down to Myrtle Beach to watch some of the top players in the state get after one another at Doug Shaw Memorial Stadium. And your South Carolina Electric Cooperative wants to remind you how you can beat the peak this winter and save on your energy bill. Visit EnergySmartSC.org/beatthepeak to learn how. All right, 800-956-7266 is the phone number. Let's go to Bill in King Street. Up next here on Sports Talk. Bill, how are you? Welcome to the program.
All right. Let me ask you a question. Notre Dame had signed a deal with NBC to carry the games on Saturday. Has that contract run out, or they renewed it?
No, it's got years to go. I think NBC and Notre Dame not too long ago extended that contract, so it's got a little ways to go.
And they'll never get in the ACC if they cut them off and they don't renew the contract. They probably wouldn't get in the ACC. Am I right?
That deal runs through 2025. It was extended in 2013, so it goes to 2025. Extension just began this year, so it's a new 10-year deal that began this year. So, Notre Dame will never join a conference for football affiliation unless they ever get to the point where they say we're only taking conference champions in a playoff or something like that, something that they would have to have a conference championship or some kind of conference standing or affiliation to get into the playoff. Why should they? They got their own TV network. They don't have to share a dime with any of you. So, why should they join a league in football? They've got a league, the ACC. They got a league that helps out in all their other sports. The ACC benefits as well from Notre Dame football in that Notre Dame plays 5 ACC teams a year. And so the ACC is going to benefit from that to some degree. So, yeah. Notre Dame's got it licked right now, except their team stinks and their quarterback's transferring.
Albatross is haunting two of the vaunted powers in football historically. Notre Dame with the NBC deal and the Longhorn Network. Those two.
Yeah. You think the Longhorn Network is just the end of everything, huh? I agree with you. They haven't been anything since they devised that network. I'm telling you, the one time I saw the Longhorn Network was a couple years ago. I've told this before, but where was I? I was somewhere. Oh, gosh, I can't remember where I was. I was somewhere that got the Longhorn Network, and it was an afternoon. It was a Friday afternoon. I got to the hotel. I turned it on, and they're showing us drills by the Longhorn offensive tackles that they were running in practice. This was live. Mm-hmm. This was supposed to be what the Longhorn Network's all about, to take you to practice where you can watch the offensive tackles do their thing. And, I mean, I'm being facetious there in that I know that they bring some real meaningful stuff there. But, I think these networks, I don't know. I don't know, especially with the way things are going with ESPN and cable, people cutting the cord because they don't want to pay for the channels. Now you can get the channels that you want at a much cheaper price over the internet and things of that nature. How are these networks going to stay alive? How are the schools going to continue to live off ESPN in particular when it's hemorrhaging money? when it's losing subscribers by the millions. And there's no end in sight for that. So they better put their money in the bank, make sure the check doesn't bounce, and put that money in the bank as soon as possible. Thanks for your phone call. We really appreciate it. And let's continue on the phones. We're headed to where? Wayne in Scranton. Hello, Wayne. Good to have you with us here on Sports Talk tonight. How are you?
I'm doing good. How y'all doing?
Man, we're doing great.
Let me ask you, did you hear that Doug Gottlieb today talking about Clemson?
No.
He was saying that, because I was listening to my 100.1 The Fan, he was saying that Clemson, if they win this weekend, they're going to back their way into the playoffs at 12.
Yeah, well, he's an idiot. He should stick to basketball. All right, he knows basketball. He doesn't even know that a football is spherical. He thinks it's round.
And also, I think that the talk of Michigan making it in is just this craziest thing. I don't care if people consider them one of the best. If you lose 2 out of the last 3 games of the season, it needs to be over with. You shouldn't be talking about it.
Well, you're right. Yeah, you're correct, and especially you got a quarterback who's playing with one arm. But here's my thing, and thank you for your call. And Pro, we can talk about this when we get you talking about the 4. And I mean, how in the world can the committee put Ohio State in the playoffs? Ohio State is not even going to play for their conference championship. How can you say they are one of the best 4 when they don't win their division? And it's really unfair, though I know that people don't care about what's fair or unfair in college football. It's unfair that the other 3 teams in the top 4 right now all have to play games Saturday while Ohio State sits on its ass at home and eats pop. I'm serious.
Yeah.
Where is the fairness in that? And what does it make these championship games mean if a team can sit home and still get in the Final Four to play for the national championship?
Yeah, that was one of the complaints about the BCS, wasn't it? When what was it? LSU took the championship game off, and then it was a rerun of Alabama and LSU for the national championship. Yeah, it's just one of those things where, and let's face it, Michigan is in the conversation out of blind luck. Sometimes you have to have luck with your opposition, because everybody talks about when they mention Michigan, well, they blew out Colorado. Well, nobody knew Colorado was going to be this good, and that's the only reason they're getting juice. They probably, when they scheduled Colorado, thought they had a cupcake. As it turned out, they did. However, that cupcake exploded after they played Michigan, and now I think won 8 in a row and now playing for the Pac-12 title. But yeah, the Big Ten is getting a lot of love. I got to tell you. But I will say this. People will say, well, they should be in the playoff if you win your title game. But I will tell you, from where Penn State came from 3 years ago, they are now. I think those fans are happy if they win and they go out to Pasadena, as long as they're playing.
Weren't they talking about James Franklin being on the hot seat going into this season? People were wondering if James Franklin could get it going at Penn State. And now look there. Here's the thing, too. I mean, if whoever wins the Big Ten championship, I don't think Wisconsin has a strong argument, because Wisconsin lost to both Ohio State and Michigan.
Yes.
Now, so even if they win, their argument for supplanting Ohio State would be a little weak. But Penn State beat Ohio State. And let's see, they lost to Michigan and they lost to Pitt, if my memory serves me right.
Yeah, that Pitt loss is the one that haunts.
Yeah, but still, I mean, they're not even in the top 6. They're 7th in the ranking this week. I don't know. A lot of people just love Ohio State because it's Ohio State, but that's not the way the process is supposed to be. Top of the hour break, and we'll be back.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
Okay, we're back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Phil Kornbluth up at Clemson. Professor Tom Hayes back at our studios in downtown Columbia, off working, as is Carson Mason. 800-956-7266, the number. Email back at sportstalksc.com and on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Our plans to have the M&M boys one more time fell through. Well, Will had alerted me that he wouldn't be available because he's at a meeting in Memphis. And Corey, I don't know where he is. I had hoped to have him on with us, but he did not respond. Maybe he's caught up in Alabama glory after being at the Iron Bowl on Saturday to watch Alabama and his son wreak havoc on Auburn's offense, as they did. Sports Talk presented by South Carolina Soybeans and their checkoff. Learn more at scsoybeans.org. Pork powered by soy. We got time for more calls. If you'd like to join us, 800-956-7266. We'll get to those in a moment. I want to give you the recruiting report for tonight. Several things to tell you about. USC target defensive back Keyshawn Nixon of Arizona Western Junior College picked up new offers from Georgia and Tennessee. Tennessee was in to see offensive lineman T.J. Moore of Charlotte, former USC commitment. Palmetto Prep wide receiver Zach Leslie committed to North Carolina A&T. Clemson's looking hard at 2018 linebacker Peyton Wilson of Hillsborough, North Carolina. He has several major offers, but not one from Clemson at this point. 2018 place kicker B.T. Potter of South Point was at USC today. USC offered a pair of prospects in the 2018 class in Miami today. Defensive end Kayode Oladelli and linebacker James Head Jr., both from Miami. 2018 receiver Stephen Peterson of Kennesaw, Georgia, was at Clemson for the USC game. The Tigers haven't offered, but there's interest both ways. He really enjoyed his visit to Clemson. He's 6'2", 185, had 72 catches, 1,133 yards, and 14 touchdowns this season. He's also been to Florida State, Appalachian State, and Mercer, and he's heard from Arizona State, TCU, and Northwestern. Running back Fort Lauderdale has been committed to USC since April, and he's maintaining that commitment at this point despite overtures from other programs. He was expecting USC to visit today, but they informed him that they'll be in to see him tomorrow, and he said that he'll have a better feel for things with USC after the visit. He said Miami's been talking to him, UCLA, and some others. He said he used to talk to USC all the time, but he hasn't talked to them in as he put it, a little minute. And so he hopes to see what's up with South Carolina when he meets with them. Brian's been talking with Travaris Robinson and Bobby Bentley from USC. He is hoping the offer from USC is still valid because he's been committed and he'd like to stick with his commitment. But he'll find out more when he has that meeting. He has 579 rushing yards this season, 7 touchdowns. He's averaging 7.3 yards per carry. Also, offensive lineman Jerry Drake Jr. from Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. A little bit more on his situation to update. He met this week with coaches from Michigan State and Pitt. He said Thursday, Will Muschamp and Sean Elliott are to meet with him at his home. He has taken officials to USC and Tennessee and is going to Oklahoma this weekend. Not sure about a final official visit for December 10th. That will be his final available weekend because he's graduating early. And the message he continues to get from USC is that they need linemen. He can really help them in their program. He is an offensive tackle. He does not have a favorite. And Shrine Bowl defensive end Brad Johnson of Pendleton was at Clemson Saturday night for the Palmetto Bowl, but not as a Clemson recruiting target, as a fan. The Tigers have not pursued Johnson, but USC has for months. His coach, Paul Sutherland, tells us that the outcome of the game, and he said that Johnson was emphatic about this, the outcome of the game will have zero bearing on his decision. Johnson right now is going to set officials to USC, Tennessee, and Virginia Tech. Mississippi State and Texas A&M also have been after him, but there's really no time for Johnson to take visits out there because Virginia Tech is one of the schools that he's looking at, and he can't go to Virginia Tech this weekend because they're in the ACC Championship. Then he's got the Shrine Bowl, and then you'll have 3 weekends in January when you can visit. So that pretty much limits what you can do, and that's why he's got his eyes on USC, Tennessee, Virginia Tech, and USC wants the last visit if possible. Virginia Tech is hoping to have an in-home visit with Johnson this week, and likely will be the first one in the home. USC recruiter Coleman Hutzler talked with Johnson by phone on Friday night. Johnson made unofficial visits for games this season to USC, Tennessee, and he was in Bristol as a guest of Virginia Tech for the game against Tennessee. All right, there you go with recruiting. You know, when I was writing that story, Pro, and I got to the part there about him being in Bristol for that football game, I couldn't decide if I should say he was in Bristol, Tennessee, or Bristol, Virginia, because the city is split by the state line.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the racetrack, I think, is in the Tennessee part.
It is in Tennessee.
Yeah. So, but I guess he was in Bristol, Tennessee, if he was at the racetrack. All right, there you go. That is the recruiting report. And as recruiting, of course, recruiting is always hot. You know that. There is no downtime in recruiting. But with 2 months to go before signing day, and we're 2 months away, 2 months from today, hey, will be signing day 2017. Let's have a party. Jarmar, let's plan a party for a national signing night here on Sports Talk.
How many
little
balloons will you let
champagne,
me have?
little caviar, something to celebrate the end of another recruiting season and the beginning of another one, though the next one's already begun, and the one after that's already begun, and the one after that's already begun. There is no end to this craziness. But I want to remind you to check out our recruiting information. And the beautiful thing about our site, there's a couple of beautiful things about our recruiting information. Number one, it's coming from me. Number two, it's free. Now, one might be more important to you than the other, but it's just like air. It's there to be taken in and used. So go to our website for free and look around at the recruiting and the other stuff on there. Also follow us on Twitter for recruiting updates, not only from us. We're not pigs. We realize there's about how many recruiting reporters do you think there are in this country now, Pro? I would estimate about 2.5 million recruiting reporters in the country.
Some people say too many. T-O-O.
Well, I would agree with that. I would certainly agree with that. But anyway, we will tweet, we'll retweet, we'll pass along the tweets of others who are reporting relevant information regarding Clemson, South Carolina, and others in our state. Use the hashtag STRecruiting. I created that hashtag STRecruiting, to take you to the information. All right, back to the phones we go. Here on this, okay, our lines have dropped. I thought we had some folks waiting, so we will tell you that our phone lines are open, 800-956-7266. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com, and on Twitter @SportsTalkSC. Coming up, we will bring you some Dabo Swinney talking about Virginia Tech and the Tigers getting ready for their ACC championship showdown with the Hokies. These used to be two really bitter rivals that played regularly and had some great games going way back into the Danny Ford era when Bill Dooley was the coach at North Carolina. Then Frank Beamer took over and made Virginia Tech. Did I say North Carolina? I'm sorry. When Bill Dooley was the coach at Virginia Tech, and then Frank Beamer took over and made Virginia Tech a household name. And Virginia Tech's trying to get back there under Justin Fuente, who has done a great job. And they do have some weapons. They have a quarterback who's dangerous. They have some tall wide receivers and their typical array of big, nasty offensive linemen. We'll hear from Dabo coming up. All right, coming up in just a moment here on Sports Talk, comments from Clemson football coach Dabo Swinney. Tigers getting ready to play Virginia Tech Saturday night in Orlando at Camping World Stadium. Renovated stadium. Looking forward to being there to check it out. And before we get to Dabo, want to remind you that your friends and mine from South Carolina Forestry Commission reminds you insects and diseases can be moved hundreds of miles in firewood and threaten our forests, favorite campsites, neighborhoods, and state and national parks. Help protect the trees you love. Purchasing firewood at or near where you're going to burn it. For more information, visit don'tmovefirewood.org. All right, Dabo Swinney getting his Tigers ready for Virginia Tech and the ACC championship game. Here are some comments from him on that very subject. Of course, he's ecstatic about having the opportunity once again to have his team in the ACC championship game and a chance to win back-to-back ACC titles.
It's a privilege to compete for the ACC championship. We take a lot of pride in that. It's what we set out to do. Because from day one when we got this job, if we can compete in our league, if we can consistently be in the hunt for our league, we're not going to win it every year, but if we can consistently be in the hunt and compete at the highest level in this conference, then we're going to have a chance to be a nationally relevant football team. And that's what's happened over the 8 years here. It's our fourth opportunity to go play for the title. And, we know that we've got an outstanding challenge in Virginia Tech in front of us. Watching these guys, very impressive football team. It's going to be weird not having Coach Beamer there. We haven't played him, since Coach Beamer retired. But very, very physical football team, prideful football team that plays with great effort. They play to the last echo of the whistle every snap. And I have a great respect for that when you turn on the tape and you watch, teams compete the way these guys compete. So really impressed with what I've seen offensively. It all goes through number 4, their quarterback. I mean, he is a very good football player, big, strong, physical guy. They're a spread with great tempo. They want to play really, really fast. So that means that the quarterback's got to be a great decision maker for them. And, they're going to all the zone read stuff and then the play action, the run pass options that come off of that. He does an excellent job. So they've got a great system. They understand what they're doing, and they've got excellent skill around this quarterback. They're good at running back. They got a good tight end. They got some outstanding guys outside. They got a 6'7" dude out there that everybody has thrown the ball up to, and or he's made. They've thrown it up to him, and he's made plays on everybody. Good football player. Number 1's a heck of a receiver. Well, number 5 is their jet sweep guy. But it's a good football team. Offensive line, tough, physical, built to run the ball. They're going to run the powers, the counters, the quarterback powers, the sweep powers. They're going to run all of that stuff with the play actions off of it. A lot of specials that they have set up. They run a bunch of I don't necessarily think they're trick plays, but they're specials designed off of what they do, which is good coaching. But very impressed with them. And then defensively, Bud Foster's been there forever, 20 plus years or so, 22 years as the coordinator, and he's forgot more football than I'll probably ever know. He is a great football coach and does an unbelievable job. I got a ton of respect for the job he does, because again, to stay somewhere that long and to have that type of success and to see how his team plays. I mean, those guys just take on his personality. They play with tremendous effort, toughness. They're a disciplined group. They truly understand the nuances of his defense, present a lot of different things from a coverage standpoint. They'll show you a lot of different looks.
That's Dabo talking about Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech last won an A championship in 2010 under Frank Beamer. They had all kind of great streaks going under Frank Beamer. Never won a national championship, close, but never got them to the promised land of a national championship. But he made Virginia Tech highly relevant on the national scene. Frank Beamer did, and now Justin Fuente is coming in and doing the same thing very quickly. Now, I know we've all talked about Clemson winning this ball game on Saturday night, moving on into the playoffs, but you have to think about what happens if the Tigers lose, Pro. If the Tigers were to somehow lose to Virginia Tech and finish at 11-2, okay, they're probably not going to make the playoff after losing to Virginia Tech if that were to happen. Would you agree with that?
Boy, well, of course, some dominoes would have to fall. For instance, Colorado is far back enough that if they upset Washington, Washington drops off, but they don't move in. And so I don't know. Maybe there's an outside chance that Clemson still gets in there.
I don't know. I think if that were to be the case,
Michigan would slide in,
or the Big Ten championship game winner, or you got Oklahoma State back there screaming if they beat. Because see, Oklahoma State maintains they only have one loss because they got cheated out of a game early in the year when they had the mistake by the officials. So they claim they only have one loss, even though it says, as I look at their record, it says 2.
Well,
one of those losses is imaginary, apparently.
I would, if I'm Michigan, I say I have, I didn't lose the Ohio State game. We played 60 minutes. It was a tie. They had to go extra time to win, so we'll just count the first 60 minutes. We didn't lose that game.
Well, they'll say also there's a spot of the football there, the spotting of the football that was somewhat controversial that went against Michigan that led to their demise there. Hey, there's going to be, some people are pushing Southern Cal, trying to get Southern Cal, but not with 3 losses. But they did finish strongly. They were one of the hottest teams in the country to finish out the season. So here's the problem, though, for Clemson is that if they lose and they don't make it into the 4, well, Virginia Tech's going to go to the Orange Bowl. So the question becomes then, where does Clemson go? All of a sudden, they're going from talking the national playoffs to not even being able to go to the Orange Bowl. I wonder if they could be picked up as a wild card selection for one of the other New Year's Day bowl games, possibly.
And wouldn't it be just terrible if the bowl that picked up the phone and called was the Fiesta Bowl?
Yeah.
and you have to make a trip out to Arizona anyway.
No. Wait a minute. There is no Fiesta Bowl. The Fiesta Bowl is a national semifinal. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So they don't do the doubles anymore. So the Fiesta Bowl is the week of the national semifinal. That'll be treated. See, this will be just like last Orange Bowl that Clemson played in was the national semifinal. Right, that's why they were treated to the parade and all the festivities that you normally have with a bowl game. The national championship game, business trip. There's no build up to it in terms of parades and things that you have with the bowl games. It's just basically go out to the site a couple of days in advance, a couple of days of practice, and go play the ball game. Kind of like the league championship games. There's no fanfare with the ACC championship game. The teams will go down on Friday, have a press conference, a walk through at the stadium, and then play the game on Saturday night. All right, break is coming up. 800-956-7266 is the number. If you'd like to join us on the program, Brad Brownell with a preview of Nebraska coming up as well. We'll be right back. It's Sports Talk on a Wednesday night. We're up at Clemson, Tigers and Nebraska. ACC Big Ten Challenge tipping off at 9 o'clock on ESPNU. That's where you can find it, ESPNU. The Tigers coming in, having won their last game after losing back-to-back games in Orlando. They bounced back with a win over High Point the other night. They are 3-2. Nebraska is 4-2 going into tonight's game. The Tigers have Coppin State, Mercer, and South Carolina State coming up after the night. So if they could get a win tonight, 4-2, a chance to win 3 more at home to get to 7-2 before a trip to Alabama on Sunday, December 18th, and then a trip to USC on December 21st. And looking forward to watching the Tigers in action for the first time this season. You know, part of our upcoming North-South All-Star football game coverage, the halftime ceremonies will feature the naming of Mr. Football in South Carolina for 2016. The finalists are Gage Maloney of Northwestern, DeMarco Jackson of Broome, Noah Hannon of Greer, Ortre Smith of Wando, and Cedric Cunningham from North. Which of the 5 will make it as the winner of Mr. Football in South Carolina? We will find out at halftime of the North-South game, the Touchstone Energy Bowl down in Myrtle Beach a week from Saturday. And, of course, our folks over at the South Carolina Electric Cooperative involved with the North-South game, sponsorship of Mr. Football. We all appreciate what they are doing for the game and for high schools and for you, their customers. They remind you that you can beat the peak and save on your energy bill. Visit EnergySmartSC.org/beatthepeak to learn how. All right. Clemson getting ready for Nebraska here at 9 o'clock at Little John Coliseum. Here's Brad Brownell, Tigers head coach, giving us a preview of what to expect of the Cornhuskers.
Good start for them, you know, just coming off a big tournament like we did. Great win against a very good Dayton team. Their guards, Watson and Webster, are outstanding. Watson's smaller, fast, jitterbug guard that can get in a lane, make shots, very active defensively, disruptive. Webster, just a big, strong 6'4" guard that handles the ball almost like a point guard and tremendous athleticism going to the lane. So a lot to handle with those two guys. I like the guy, their sophomore inside guy, Morrow, inside, about 6'7". He's undersized, but about 230, 235, very athletic, disruptive that way, takes the ball to your chin, plays like city in terms of rebounding. And they've got some nice shooters on the wing, McVeigh. Played a great schedule so far. Lost a pretty good battle with UCLA and one of those last day in a tournament games with Virginia Tech that was probably a little bit ugly for 20 minutes. And then they just kind of didn't make shots in the second half. And Virginia Tech, you know, found a way to win, was opportunistic. And so we'll see a very good team. I think they're very good defensively. Tim does a really good job with them, well coached, hard to score against, a little bit more pack line-ish defense in the man and just very well schooled, not out of position much. And, you know, we'll have to play well to win.
Pretty good guards. Any concern about his on-ball defense?
A little bit, but that's, you know, he'll be fine. And, you know, our guys all need to be better defensively, to be honest with you. You know, I talked a little bit. We just have a team that has a little bit more of an offensive mindset. And, you know, some of that shows in the way we score. We have more guys that can score, and their identity is more closely thought of to how they play offensively. You know, that's how they view their games. And so sometimes that can be problematic. And, you know, we've had some guys around here, probably Landry Noko, Rod Hall, even KJ to some degree that, you know, were as much defensive minded guys. And, you know, this team just has to do better in that area. And if we're going to be as good as we want to be. And, you know, certainly our numbers bear that out. I think we've played well at times defensively, but we've also had breakdowns and not been as good. And so that's a real challenge for all our guys.
Brad Brownell talking about Clemson's game tonight against Nebraska. Tigers 3-2. As I mentioned, all 5 starters right now averaging in double figures. And it's interesting, Pro, to hear Brownell talk. It sounds like it's painful for him, painful to talk about a good offensive team that, to be good on offense, you have to sacrifice good defense, and that is not what he likes. I mean, he wants as good an offense as possible, but he wants defense every night. Kind of feels like this team is very good offensively, but not playing up to his standards on defense.
Yeah, well, the best quality is they always tell you that you really, as a coach, like offense, but you want the defensive mindset because obviously if you have that concentration level, it's easy to pack your defense every night than offense because there's going to be nights when the shots don't drop. And on those nights, Clemson has been effective where they turn people over and they turn that into offense. So I think probably that's what he wants to see more, to see if they can turn some people over and generate offense that way rather than just exude energy on the offensive end because you want to score.
Well, he's probably not happy at 2 things. The opponents are shooting over 45% from the floor against Clemson and over 37% from 3. So that's not going to make him real happy to see their percentages are higher than his own teams. He expects more than that. Tigers are also being out-rebounded by 1.2 boards per game. And so I'm sure those are areas that he's addressing. If this Nebraska team is typical of Big Ten teams and other Nebraska teams, they're going to be a physical bunch when they come in here. And this is a Clemson team that really doesn't have a deep bench at all. They pretty much play 6 guys right now. And we'll see if he extends the bench moving forward as soon as Thomas is eligible to play. And is he eligible as of tonight, or I think it's a little bit deeper in December, isn't it?
I think probably. Isn't it after the exams?
Yeah, I think it's after the exams. Looking to see if it tells me here. He'll be eligible in mid-December, so he'll give them another one off the bench. But right now, they're only playing 6 guys. Their number 7 guy, in terms of minutes, is Legend Roberton. He's only averaging 1 point. He's averaging 7.5 minutes per game. So you got 6 averaging at least 21, and then you got Roberton off the bench averaging 7.5. So they have just Shelton Mitchell averaging 11 minutes. He's only played in 1 game coming off the knee. You may see more out of him now that he's had some more time to come off the knee injury that set him back a little bit. A couple of things I wanted to mention, and back to recruiting. Clemson has picked up a couple of baseball commitments in the last couple of days. And for the 2018 class, infielder Mac Starbuck of Easley and left-handed pitcher Keyshawn Askew of Powder Springs, Georgia. They both commit to Clemson. And now there's this, and this is, totally unnecessary. And somebody, according to a tweet, somebody painted 56-7 on the masonry of the sign at the USC's Gamecock Park. The little where the lettering is, and it has a white background with the lettering, University of South Carolina Gamecock Park. Somebody painted in red paint 56-7. So don't know who did it. People are obviously jumping to a conclusion that it was a Clemson fan. But remember, everybody thought it was a Gamecock who attacked Howard's Rock, and that turned out to be a Clemson fan. So maybe a crazed Gamecock fan went over there and painted the sign there. But that kind of stuff is just not necessary now, is it, people? Really? All right, we'll be back. 800-956-7266 is the number. It's Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. bum, bum. We are back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, 800-956-7266 is our phone number. We welcome in your calls here in the final 10 minutes of the program tonight. And we want to remind you to score big with Founders Federal Credit Union. Founders with convenient office locations at Clemson and USC and ATMs at Clemson and USC, Converse, Limestone, PC, USC Lancaster, Winthrop, York Tech. Visit foundersfcu.com for a full listing to find an ATM or office near you. If you're not a member, visit relaxjoinfounders.com to see if you qualify for membership. Founders Federal Credit Union is federally insured by NCUA. Now, last night, Oregon, the Mighty Ducks, they put out a release about the dismissal of their football coach. The athletic director announcing that their coach of 4 years, the guy that took them to a national championship game, Mark Helfrich, is out after a 4-year tenure. He was awful. How did he last this long pro? He was 37-16. He took over for Chip Kelly. He reached the playoff championship game after the 2014 regular season. Then he went 9-4 in 2015, and 4-8 this season, which ended in the team's first loss to Oregon State in nearly a decade. Boy, you talk about a knee-jerk reaction. So he takes over for Chip Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
He goes to the national championship game in 2014, still wins 9 games in 2015. Okay, so I know, step back a little bit, but you lost the quarterback after the national championship season. You took a couple of quarterbacks, graduate guys, so you took a step back, and then you take a step back this year. I mean, unless the guy is a complete jerk and you don't like him or something, which doesn't appear to be the case. In fact, I was talking with someone today who used to work and cover the Ducks who said this guy is the nicest guy in the world, Helfrich, or is it Helfrich? Helfrich.
Mm-hmm.
And they fired him. And this is why people are scratching their heads about college sports. Now, we all know with the Knight community behind Oregon, money is no issue out there. Money is no issue. But you can't always fix things with money, people. You can't just throw money at it and expect it to work. Just like, look at all the failures of big money college coaches who stepped in after getting these huge contracts and just couldn't get it done. They're fired, 3 or 4 years later.
Well, this is I was about to say, this is the only team that's been good for, I'd say, the last decade, but has been solid. And they were much like the Steelers in that they didn't fire their coaches. I mean, Rich Brooks, who then went to the NFL to coach the Rams and then coached under Dan Reeves for the Falcons, and then came back and kind of built Kentucky into a solid team in the SEC. Then you follow Rich Brooks with Mike Bellotti, who was an assistant under him. Bellotti hired Chip Kelly out of New Hampshire. Chip Kelly had never been west of the Mississippi till you went to Oregon. Then, he left, and then there's Helfrich. And then suddenly you decide, wait a minute, we're going to do like everybody else and fire coaches instead of succeeding from within. And let's face it, Corn, we know what's going on at Oregon. Oregon was good because they were good, but also because teams like Southern Cal and Washington were rebuilding. Now those teams have arrived, and those recruits that Oregon used to grab, suddenly that recruiting pipeline is going to start to dry up. And they have to recruit nationally, let's face it, because there's no natural recruiting base in the state of Oregon for Oregon and Oregon State. Mm-hmm. And that's whoever they hire has to figure that out. You're going to get big money, and just make sure, just like Helfrich getting $11 million, that you get a big payout if recruiting pipelines are cut off.
If you took all the money, let's just say in the last 5 years, if you took all the money that major colleges have paid for buyouts, and so you're saying Helfrich got $11 million?
Yes.
Charlie Strong's getting about $11 million. If you added it up over the last 5 years, I'd like to do that one day. Maybe I'll put my crack staff to work on that and see what the total is. I mean, you're probably talking about a sum of money equal to a small nation's economy. You know,
the GNP.
100 something million. It's in the hundreds of millions of dollars, I'm sure, when you add it all up. So, all right, let's get back to the phones. 800-956-7266 is the number. You said Ryan from Gallivant's Ferry. Hello, Ryan. How you doing? Gallivant's Ferry.
That's Vernon, Vernon.
Vernon, but you're in Gallivant's Ferry, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, man. Driven through there a million times. Stop at that Esso station right there at the river from time to time.
Oh, yeah. Trademark.
Yes, yes. How'd you come out with the flood? Did it get in your area?
No, we weren't affected. It was coming up close to the house, but we didn't ever get flooded out.
Yeah. I rode over the Little Petey River there at the height of the flooding, and it was almost up to the bridge, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty amazing to see it that high.
Yeah, we stayed right down the road on Petey Road, so it kind of curved, and we kind of stayed up on the hill, so it didn't really affect us. But
that's great.
Some of the bridges had washed out, but
yeah,
we kind of had a detour around, so they weren't too bad.
How can we help you tonight?
On TigerNet, they had some top 5 recruits from Tennessee that got verbally today, and I was want to get your comments on it and just what happened to Latta in their playoff game. I know you're from Latta. So.
Yeah. I'm sorry to see them. They just got beat by a better team. Bamberg Earhart's always good. And Latta was having one of their best seasons, one of their best regular seasons in years. And I hear Latta's still going to be pretty good. Got a junior quarterback who apparently throws it pretty well. As far as what you're referring to, those guys are committed to Clemson. You're talking about the running back Robinson and the wide receivers. They have long been committed to Clemson. That just didn't happen today, so don't be confused. The story was about how Clemson has gone into Tennessee and snatched 3 of the top players in the state of Tennessee, all of whom are Mr. Football winners in the state of Tennessee in various regions and classes. So they were just pointing out how well Clemson is recruiting in the state of Tennessee.
Do you think they have an impact their first year, or they have to work itself into those positions?
Well, I think that Richardson will have a chance, the running back, because Clemson's losing Gallman, and they'll be looking for another stud-type running back, whether it's Tavian Feaster or somebody else emerging. I think he'll have a chance pretty early to show what he can do, Cordarian Richardson. And then the receivers, Higgins and Rogers. I mean, like all Clemson receivers, they're high level when and it's just a matter of paying your dues and waiting your time. You did notice against South Carolina that Clemson had Overton out there catching passes. He hadn't played a whole lot this year, but he was out there catching passes. Cornell Powell has played some this year. But you got to replace Williams. You got to replace Scott. The biggest position, you got to replace Jordan Leggett. Do they have somebody in their organization who can step in and do what Jordan Leggett was able to do the last 3 years? That's a big question.
Somebody got to step in and replace that.
Yeah, that goes without saying. All right. Thanks very much. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow. Well, yeah. I was thinking more about receivers.